Hi all, I'm Jeanette Keynes from Jewelry Arts Inc. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to solder a gold bezel down to a silver back sheet. And also along the way, a few tricks for getting your bezel just right. Basically, something that we do a lot of times with high carat gold is you may not always have the desire or the gold to do like a whole big piece all in gold, right? It's nice to be able to combine it with silver. It's no big deal really to do it. You just have to use silver solder. Because basically whenever you're doing any marriage of metals, whenever you're combining two metals, you have to use the solder of the metal that melts at the lower temperature to put them together. So we've made this lovely bezel for this. Look at that beautiful opal. Sexy, right? Look at that juicy baby. Who doesn't like that? So we made a nice 22 karat bezel, like so, that fits it exactly, but we didn't clean up the seam yet.
I didn't. I only sanded the bottom.
And you still and you left a little nick. It's a tough crowd, man. Well, here's the thing.
Yeah, and now it's all on film too.
That's right. It's all documented. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand it down a little more. The reason that it matters, I never care about anything unless it's going to show, because I don't give a shit otherwise. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But that little nick is going to fill in with silver solder, so then you're going to have like a little more silver than you should. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Okay. So I'm just going to sand it down, like so. And what we did is we have a nice, what is that, 24? 22 gauge. Sterling sheet, annealed, pickled, flattened. Now, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times I like to go ahead and clean up my seam before I solder it down to the back sheet, because for example, you see this like seam on the side? Okay? Mm-hmm. Ta-da. Close up. Mm-hmm. Zoom in. Exactly. So the problem with seams like this, if you haven't noticed this already, is when your seam is on a very straight side or a slightly indented side, it's really a pain in the ass to clean it up. Because you gotta keep going in and you end up getting the little stuff on the side thinner and thinner. If you guys had that experience, well, it sucks. Don't do that. So what I normally do is I take my mandrel and I poof this out just a little bit, so that the curve is convex instead of concave. The cleanup of seam is like super fast, and then I just reshape it. So for example, like, do you have a bezel mandrel in your, because when I do this, I'm not saying I'm gonna take this whole thing and like utterly round it out.
It took me hours to do that yesterday. To shape it, I mean.
So in the future, before we get the full thing in there, you're gonna clean up the side. Okay. And remember how I was like joking before, like you always pay up front, and these are the things that it's better, like clean up your bezels right off the bat, like clean up the seam, you know what I mean? The earlier you can do any of these things in the process, the happier that you will be. Basically, the longer you wait, the worse it gets. Okay, so I just take it like this, you see what I mean? And I'm gonna like poof it out a little bit. See what I mean? You know what I mean? Just so that it's a little bit, you know what I mean, a little poofed out. And then I'm going to file it.
How was that seam connected? Was it
fused? It's fused.
Fused, just the metal itself. There was no extra.
Yep.
Sorry, no.
Just fused.
It's fused gold, and she's going to use a silver back sheet.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. When you're cleaning up a seam, normally you file first. The sandpaper will blend it together. But if you're getting rid of the seam with just sandpaper, it's just going to take you too long, you know? So I'm gonna maybe poof this out just a little bit more. And actually, thank you, because look at all the other steps I get to show everybody.
To show how terrible it was.
No. I have just found that I prefer to do it right in the beginning. It's better later on. Yeah, what you can do is you can set down a piece of paper, you know what I mean, and file over that and then collect it. So normally what I do is I just file this tiny little bit until the line disappears, like so.
Oh, sorry.
Operator error. That's okay. That's okay.
I think
We
I
got it.
missed all your tools.
Yes, you did. How very tidy of you.
Sorry about that. This is like the cursed video. What can go wrong? will
It's
go
the
wrong.
blooper reel.
Oh God, don't say that.
Oh, sorry. not the cursed piece.
Not
the
the
cursed,
gold.
The video.
So you see what I mean? Like I just filed that till the line disappeared. I mean, then that took like no time, you know? And see what I mean?
With a very fine.
This is a cut number 2. This is the Val Titan, which is like my favorite file in the whole world. If you don't have one, be sad because this is the best. I don't like to use coarser ones in number 2 because I don't like to put a deeper scratch in that then I have to clean up again. So for me, cut 2 is good. You see what I mean?
You can't even see.
Exactly. And then I'll take some regular 400 or some green paper or the magic sandpaper, whatever sandpaper floats your boat, and just blend that together. Okay, see what I mean? It takes like literally just like seconds to do. Okay. There's a look for your approval. You see what I'm saying? And that's a lot faster a little bit. So I'm just gonna shape this back flat again and make sure, double check that it fits our stone before we solder it down.
You do have an arrow on the inside.
I saw that, look at that. Planning head,
Well,
excellent.
for me, you probably would know which way it goes, but
No, what I usually do for irregular ones is I only sand the bottom.
oh, that's smart.
But whatever,
Yes.
the arrow, whatever method, because yes, I can't tell you how many times as a student I ended up soldering the wrong fucking side down, and then I was super pissed.
Oh, I would be.
Took me a long time to wise up to that.
Where did you study?
Me?
Yeah.
Here.
In this room?
I was practically born here. I came for a class, and we weren't in this space. We were on the west side 30 years ago, and I never left. Literally, no, it was like the most fun ever, and I just was like, more. And then I started heckling my boss when I found out that they had the apprentice program. She was not excited. But I'm very,
She couldn't get rid of you.
I was very determined. Every couple months I'd be like, oh, so you haven't found a new apprentice yet? And yet here I am, so conveniently located. You know what I mean?
Jeanette, I liked the Princeton comment though.
Oh, that was good. That was when I first called here, I made a big fool out of myself.
You did not. It's a great story.
I thought I would never confess it. I had to wait for enough years to go by when I was like, oh, it's funny. It's fine.
No, it's great.
What was the Princeton comment? Now you have to tell.
When I was like, when I decided I wanted to be a jeweler, I started, this was pre-internet, oh God. So I like went and looked in the phone book for jewelry schools, and the only jewelry schools were in New York City. So I,
Where were you?
in New Jersey,
Oh, okay.
Bridge and Tunnel crowd right here. So I like was gonna like write away to people because that's what you did back in the day. So like I looked it up on the phone, but like got phone numbers, and I called, and I here, and this is, we were on the Upper West Side, that cold water flat, you know what I mean? And I was like, hi, could you connect me to the financial aid department? And Myron, who used to teach here, was like, what do you think this is, grade stuff? You know, and I was like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, it's so funny.
because to me, I was like, it was called Jewelry Arts Institute. So that meant like it was a campus, right? And people were going to be wearing white coats. And, you know, it was like, you know, I was like, I wanted the financial aid department, which they did not have. So, yeah, we got a good laugh out of that one. But it took a while because I didn't confess that right away. When I first came in, I was like, that was, you know, I didn't confess that was me.
Myron was it?
Myron Bukakis. He's still a jeweler. He makes beautiful jewelry. And he does have a voice like Count Chocula, just so you know. If you know Myron, that's actually a fairly apt impersonation.
But wasn't Jean Stark here?
Jean Stark left like right before I came, which was
Okay.
really a bummer for me that I didn't get to work with her. Okay, so I'm just fooling around with this and making sure it's straight.
Directly under your nose.
Directly under my nose. And in my defense, I was only like 21 at the time, so you know, I didn't know nothing. I still don't know nothing, but even less.
Oh, I think you know a lot.
Well, some things. I thought I was going to be able to get like a student aid, man, and you know, go to like the student cafeteria and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like get my lunch punch card. Yeah, I thought like, and then I went and I was like, oh. Okay, so I'm tweaking, it's going, life is good. So what I'm gonna do, I want you to do one last little fool around with this and make sure it fits just the way you want. And then I'm gonna call you all back and we're gonna solder, okay? Because I feel like I wanna tweak it a little bit, but I wanna let you do that because it's your baby.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so we're not gonna do anything super complicated here. I'm just going to cut up some squares of the hard solder. I'm gonna ball it up. I'm gonna dip it in some paste flux. We're gonna stick it in there and we're gonna heat from underneath. When you solder stuff to back sheets, normally heating from underneath works best because the solder wants to go toward the most heat. So if you heat from the top and you don't do it very, very, very carefully, the solder tends to want to just like run up the bezel, which is not what you want. So usually we just use a tripod because it's just a real fast and easy way to do it.
Is that onto silver?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna combine the silver and the gold because a lot of times it's a whole lot of money to have the whole thing.
Oh, that's fine. And then I'm curious why you're using hard when you've been using soft with the gold. Did I miss something?
No, we didn't solder, we fused.
We fused the bezel.
But when you do, in your book you were saying you usually go from like,
But that's gold solder. I do prefer the soft solders.
When it's gold.
Yes, exactly. But with this, there's just hard, medium,
got
soft.
it. I just was wondering if there was a preference depending on the metal.
Yes, but in silver, there's really just IT, hard, medium, and easy. So I go with the hard because it's sterling.
And you're using silver solder, not gold solder?
Correct. When you're combining two metals, you have to use the solder of the lower melting of the two. And high carat gold has a really high melting point. So generally you're working with the silver solder. Okay, so I'm gonna cut up some nice fat balls of solder, like so. And I promise I won't trash Marianne's solder balls much. But see, she cut these beautiful little ones, which are great. But for this, I would have to put like 35 of them in there. And I'm like, no, I don't wanna do that. So.
They're so pretty. Don't get them confused with granulation.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
They do look good. So the reason that I ball my solder up is they're a little easier to handle. They tend to hang out like next to the bezel better. The little squares, if you've ever noticed, you get them in the flux and they wiggle around, and then a lot of times they don't end up actually up against the seam. They melt, they make a puddle. So I usually ball mine up and it just takes like a second.
So then is that like even? Oh, you're not doing that.
Like so. If you do it really hot and fast, they almost don't even oxidize at all. They stay nice and clean. If you go slow, they'll start looking like beef jerky, and you don't want that. You don't want them to look all like shrivelly, you know what I mean? If that happens, just put it in your sweeps and make new ones.
What gauge silver is that?
22.
Okay, so if it were me, I would add a little water to this paste flux so it's a little more soupy. Because when your paste flux gets too dry, it's really hard to get those little balls to come off. Okay, so I just grab it, dip it in, put it up against the edge.
I just want to make sure that it's even all around because I'm getting that edge. Yeah.
So you only put flux on the little solder, you don't put it on the thing itself?
By the time I'm done putting them all in there, if I look at it and go, oh, you know, I need more paste flux, I'll add a little bit more. But most of the time, I just go straight to like dip the ball in the flux and stick it in there. Because when I dry this, these little stinkers are gonna kind of move around no matter what I do within reason, so.
Does it manage the fire scale if you're doing silver by not fluxing the silver?
Fire scale is something that happens with very extended heating. You know what I mean?
I know.
And I don't do any, I tend to, when I solder, we're gonna blow this thing out of the water. We're gonna like get in there like really hot and fast. So I find that I never really get fire scale unless maybe I'm working on like a really big cuff or something. And in that case, I will do a coating fire scoff or the homemade fire coat, or you know what I mean. But normally I don't really take special precautions, and it's fine.
You didn't flux the bottom of that base?
No, I'm just dipping these in the paste flux, and then when I'm done, if I feel like I don't quite have enough, then I'll put more. But I mean, just remember, like, you put it in there, it's wet. I mean, it kind of moves around. So however you do it, it's all sort of the same in the end, if you know what I mean. Okay. Go. I think I'm going to put one more piece in. I think I will add just a little bit of paste flux to the outside, but if you take a look, I mean, that's pretty well fluxed.
And how many balls did you?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if I used the little ones, I just would have used more of them. I mean, like I said, it's kind of all the same in the end, but that's just that many more that I've got to pay attention to and make sure they're up against the edge. So.
No, I'm just looking. That's the same size as the other. I just want to make sure I have, because I'm giving her a border around.
So I can wait for. No, it has nothing to do with Jeanette. I'm just asking if you want me to show you. You
Okay.
can do it.
And when I dry this flux, it's quite possible it'll move, and I might have to poke it back, but you know.
Get this gap completely closed.
What I can also do is dry it a little bit when it's down here, so that it's a little easier to see, but it's kind of all the same in the end.
That's yes, and then flatten it, and that's then I'll see if it's in the right shape for fusible.
What's that, a 1, Jeanette?
Yep.
You put the silver solder inside?
Yep, so I put balls of solder. Right now I'm just sort of drying the flux a little bit so that it'll kind of relatively sit there and behave itself. I'm going to take it and put it up on the tripod.
Did you put the fire in here to make the ball of solder, or
I'm sorry?
is this plate okay to?
Basically what I did is I cut a little square of solder and put it on here and heat it up real fast. Yes.
Both sides simultaneously so that it pushes. Okay, so not like
Whenever I have the opportunity to put the solder somewhere that it can't be seen, you're darn right I take it. Do you know what I'm saying? So sometimes there's different situations where you might choose one or the other, inside or outside, but for something like this, I would always put the solder on the inside, because even if it does something naughty, it doesn't matter, I don't have to clean it up. Okay. So that looks good. Maybe I'll let Alexis take a shot there just to see what's happening there.
Check it first.
See what I mean? Fat balls of solder, paste flux. Now, when soldering gold to silver, it's really no different than soldering silver to silver or gold to gold. We are going to get it hot as fast as humanly possible, and the solder is going to flow and be beautiful. Now, a lot of times when I'm doing this and I'm soldering, I don't really want my face directly over it because I've got the flame pointed at me. Also, then I'm inhaling those flux fumes, which are not super, excellent to inhale. So normally what I'm doing is I'm watching the edge, because it almost doesn't matter as much what's happening in there. What matters is the solder flowing around that outside seam. So normally that's what I'm watching. I'm not doing, you know what I mean, like this and hitting things with my boobs, and you know what I'm saying. I'm watching from the side. I'm also short, so that's an issue for me as well. Big boobs, short, all kinds of issues, Okay. Okay, so we're not screwing around. We're putting it right on there. I'm not circling or doing anything. Basically, I'm keeping it steady. I'm concentrating on this end first to get it hot and get it to flow. And then when it flows, I'll work my way down to the other end. See that? Solder starts to flow. Yay.
You don't waste any time.
Dude, I got shit to do.
I know.
I have that on film.
That's right.
So what tip did you
That
use?
was a 1 tip.
It was a one
Yeah.
tip, okay.
So if you look around the edge, I'll let Alexis do a little close-up. You just see it flowed all the way around. But you know, the best soldering is fast. The longer it takes to get hot, the more chance of oxidation, and then it doesn't want to flow. All bad things, you know what I mean? So basically, the faster you can get that hot and then get the hell out, the better off you are. So then you let it cool, throw it in the pickle, double check, make sure everything looks good, you know, trim, file, etc., etc. Okay?